And we're back. It's DJam with Digital DJ Tips. We spent the last 3 videos in this series talking to you about how to get your assets together for promotion campaigns. Your DJ bio, your logo, and of course promotional photos. Now we're going to jump into actually building what we basically call promotional tactics. In this case, flyers. Flyers are basically, it's a staple in this business. It doesn't matter if they're print or online. Everybody's designing graphics, putting them out there, trying to advertise parties, events, or even just a business in general if you're a mobile DJ. Now, print flyers are always the norm, and many of us especially love to have them for scrapbooks or for memoir purposes. But if you're actually out there promoting events, whether it's just yourself as a residency or throwing bigger events, the first thing you got to think about is how much are you going to promote on the street? What is your exact plan? If you honestly are not going to go out there and put pieces of paper in people's hands, then honestly I would tell you not to bother with print flyers. It's pointless. I know some of you like to print them and take small stacks and leave them in local stores, but I've come to learn through experience that it doesn't do anything. You end up leaving your flyer in a store amongst a ton of other flyers. And oftentimes, if it's, let's say, a music store or a clothing store and somebody else is there who's throwing events, they're going to be shoving their flyers in the customer's hands. I say it again, if you're not planning on running around in the streets, giving flyers, putting them in people's hands, inviting them to your event, which is easy enough if you're a college student, then honestly, I would say skip on getting print flyers and just stick with online. Now, in designing a flyer, it doesn't matter if it's going to be online or offline. The first thing you should think about is whether or not you want to try designing it yourself, or do you want to deal with a designer. Now, if you have access to a designer, maybe it's some design student that's your best friend, maybe it's somebody who's another DJ in your group that knows design or has at least a knowledge of the programs, then definitely take advantage of it. However, if you're going to go do it yourself, I would just tell you that to try it on whatever program you're comfortable with. You don't have to get Photoshop. You can use GIMP. You could use Pixlr. You could even use Inkscape or Illustrator like you did with the logos. You could use Microsoft Word even. I've seen flyers designed on that. The only thing you have to be able to do, though, is be able to export the file to whatever you need. That means if you're going to give it to a printer and make actual paper flyers, you're going to need to give them like a PDF or JPEG. And of course, for online, you're going to use JPEGs. If you don't know how to do that with your program, then I wouldn't use that program and find one that works for you. I also would suggest, if you're going to go the print route, talk to a printer. Find a printer, ask them how much flyers are going to cost, because you're going to have to buy them in bulk, like 1,000 or more at a time. Figure out if it's worth your money to go and get full color, or to just maybe go black and white, or maybe one side or the other. But also even find out if they have templates. Many times designers, good companies, they'll have design templates for you to use. They'll have a certain size with the extra space on there for a bleed, which I'll get into in a minute. And it makes everything a lot easier on you. Plus it makes it easier on them. Because if you talk to a printer, they'll tell you horror stories about how many bad files they've received and had to somehow print them. Now, if you were to ask me what the most important pieces of advice are on designing a flyer, it's going to be 2 things: clean design and a hierarchy of information. When I'm talking about clean design, I'll use this flyer as an example. Can you read that? It's not very easy. Too often designers amateur ones especially, get a little too excited with effects and fonts and interesting kinds of things that they forget somebody has to read this. If you're using some crazy, wild-looking font you think looks cool, but nobody can read it, then you're wasting your time and money. If you're loading up every single piece of text with glows and shadows and bevels and 3D effects, again, if they can't read it, it's pointless. Sometimes, actually no, most times, less is more. You don't have to go crazy. Just make sure it looks nice, it speaks to your branding for the event, and it can be read. Now, the hierarchy of information is even more vital. In advertising, a hierarchy of information is the idea of putting all the information on a print piece or even online in the order and giving emphasis on what you need to be read the most. So when you're looking at flyers that, let's say, have a pretty girl on it, or a DJ, or a name of an event or something in big, huge text, 3D, full of effects, that is what we know as the hero image. That is the most important thing. That's the first thing you want everyone to look at. So in your case, that's going to be probably the name of the event and possibly whatever main kind of image you want to grab their attention. Nowadays, it's half-naked women. After that, everything else becomes secondary, tertiary, etc. So maybe the primary thing is going to be you're throwing a white party at the club. Everybody come dressed in white. But then the secondary information you have to now decide is, what do you think is going to attract people out besides the fact you have this white party? Is it some major headlining DJ you're bringing out? If the answer is yes, then that's what you put. If your DJs are all local and not very known, then maybe what about the drink specials or food specials, something else? Believe it or not, it's not always going to be the DJ that drags people out. Sometimes it's going to be an incredibly cheap beer deal or 25-cent wings or something of that nature. I know as DJs, we love to say we're the most important thing there, but you got to think like the average person. What's important to them? After that, it only comes down to the information you think is vital that they need to know right then and there. Of course, that's going to be like the name of the venue and possibly the address, maybe times or cover charge, and especially a web address where they can find more information. The one big thing I always say is don't try to cram everything onto a flyer. I've seen too many try to do this. They think it should all be there. It's not a good practice. This again emphasizes why you should have a website, because the website is where you put all your information, all the information you don't want to put on that flyer. Now, other good tips you could think about, use a bleed. In design, a bleed is when you have an extra amount of background going off the design so that when they cut it, they cut off a little bit of every side of the flyer, and thus the color runs all the way to the edge. Usually it's about 1/8 of an inch off each side. So if, let's say, you're designing a 7-inch by 5-inch flyer, then you're going to actually hand a file that's about 7 1/4 by 5 1/4, and that extra eighth on each side gets chopped off. Be sure not to put anything important in there, like have half of your name in there or something like that. If you're going to use any images on your flyer, make sure it's high resolution. So you see why I wanted you to take high resolution promotional photos. Taking some photo of, let's say, a girl off her Facebook or Twitter that's, let's say, 300 by 200 and trying to blow that up on a flyer is going to be a mess. We went into this last time, and you understand. Use high-res imagery. I'm also going to say that one huge thing is branding. And I'm not just talking about the company, but the image of the party. This flyer I love to pull up right here as a prime example of how I failed in that sense. This was an event I threw. My friend and I were throwing a weekly at a small bar. We wanted to be just relaxed, play some good music, hang out, kick back. Does this flyer look to you, though, like something that says that? Now that I look at it, I always look at it, it says this is a big fancy bottle service club event. Maybe a better deal would have been a couple of people hanging out, or a couple of girls in their casuals putting their feet up or something of that nature. Always make sure the imagery you use speaks to the event you're going to throw. I mean, after all, you're not going to put scantily clad models, for instance, on some hardcore underground rave where that kind of thing is not necessarily going to be. Or you're not going to throw candy ravers, for instance, on a flyer for a bottle service club. You get my point. One other nice tip, and this is an added bonus. If you're, let's say you're a DJ, you have a residency at 2 venues or the same venue, and you want to make yourself a flyer, try doing one on one side and one on the other side. So let's say you have your Thursday night on one and your Saturday night on the other side. That's a way you can save money, but also have one single flyer to hand out. So you're on Thursday night playing, pretty girl's yakking with you, you give her your flyer and flip it over and say, come out Saturday. Or you're giving it out to people. It's just an easy, helpful way. It's an old practice. It's been used a lot to save money on prints. The downside, of course, is you can't utilize both sides to advertise one event. But I would honestly suggest this if you're doing a lot of weekly events. Now, after you make your design, you have to remember to version it. And just like you did with the bio, you can't just take a one-size-fits-all approach. I'm sure you've seen in your Facebook pages where somebody puts their print flyer up and you can barely read it outside of the hero graphic. It's kind of pointless. I like to use Facebook as a prime example though for how people use flyers. If you're going to throw, let's say your flyer as your profile photo, you should honestly just get a graphic design of the hero image and the dates. And make sure that the information on the photo, like the caption, has like a web address they can go to get more information. If you're going to put it in your cover photo, you can't use a big vertical flyer because you're going to see a tiny bit of it. Design one simple graphic and only put maybe one vital piece of information, because A, people are not going to come there very often compared to catching your flyer on their newsfeed, but B, even if they come there, they're going to quickly look at it and move on. You should make it so it's a quick read and they can move on fast. And of course, if you're throwing it on news feeds, be it on any social media, even Pinterest if you were to go that far, again, think about what's going to be legible. If you notice a lot of flyers nowadays, they're putting less information because they know people aren't going to read a lot. They're going to come, they're going to see it quickly, and they're going to decide within a few seconds, is this worth my time or not? That's why you should have a web address, send them to your website, and have all the information there. And that basically covers flyers in a simple, basic sense. I'm sorry I'm not going to teach you how to design them because that would honestly take a little bit too much time. But ask questions here in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, please join us at digitaldjtips.com and sign up. There's a lot of great content, tutorials, and our forum where you can talk more with us about anything you need in the DJ realm. Thank you much.